Brothers and sisters, we continue our celebration of worship, and I invite you all at this time, would you please stand as I share our gospel reading. It comes from the 4th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. It's a very short reading this morning, verses 18 through 22. If you'd like to recite this with me, by all means, feel free to do so or follow along silently. It is the calling of the first disciples. As Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, throwing a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." They immediately left their nets and followed him. And going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, in a boat with Zebedee, their father, mending their nets. And he called them. They immediately left the boat and their father and followed him. God add abundant blessing to our understanding of the Holy Word. Please be seated. It's a part of life. And that part of life I'm speaking and referring to is the myriad of invitations we are given in our life. For example, somebody starts a new business, and they send you an invitation to be at the ribbon cutting. Or someone is about to be married, and they invite you and send an invitation to the wedding. An invitation to a retirement party, or a graduation, an invitation to your class reunion, or just maybe the pastor of a church sends you an invitation every week via email and Facebook. This morning, we are given a divine invitation. Jesus is inviting us to follow him. And I would like to just take a few moments this morning to look at this invitation that Jesus offers us, because in this text, I'd like to share 4 specific invitations. And I will guarantee that in those 4 invitations, you will find yourself. I will guarantee it, that the 4 invitations I offer via Jesus this morning, one of them is for you. Come journey with me for a moment. The first invitation before us this morning is to simply come and see. Come and see this church thing. Come and see what this Jesus is all about. Come and kick the tires for a little bit. Those first disciples must have been curious. Chances are very good they had heard about this Jesus. They may have even listened to this Jesus. They kind of knew what this Jesus might have been up to. But they could not have possibly comprehended in that moment how their lives were to change if they accepted his invitation. There are those among us this morning, I will guarantee, that are only peripherally familiar with this church thing. They're curious about this church thing, but not real sure about it. It's uncomfortable. They're not real sure what to make of all of this. What is this liturgy thing, this paper bulletin with all this stuff in it? What's this all about? What about the traditions, the acolytes, the Nicene Creed? What's this thing about passing wooden plates? There are those among us this morning that are not familiar with this church idea and its rituals and traditions. However, if that is your invitation to just come and see and kick the tires, there is perhaps perhaps a longing in your spirit that can only be filled by God, in God's Spirit. There is something that called you here this morning that you do not quite comprehend. And my advice is, if the invitation for you this morning is to just simply come and see, my advice is to take your time. Take a good, hard, long look. Take time and ponder the possibilities. Your first step here this morning may lead to more than you can ever imagine, like it was for the first disciples. So maybe your invitation this morning is to simply come and see and kick the tires. Some of you are receiving another invitation this morning. And that invitation is to rise and follow. You find yourself ready to make a move because, quite simply, you've checked this thing long enough. You've kicked the tires so long your toes are sore and calloused. The call and the invitation for you might be rise and follow. Now, I don't think I'm the only nut in the nut house. But my personality is what I call a C personality. I like my T's crossed and my I's dotted. I have a list every day that I fill out and I cross off as I go along. Am I speaking anyone's language here? And when this invitation to rise and follow comes your way or my way, I automatically go, all right, well, how long do I have to follow? How far are we going to follow? And how long is this going to take? We have looked around, and for some of you, the call is to move forward. In my study this week, I came across this writing from Reverend J. Howard Olds, who explains the difference between a Christian and a disciple. And it's huge. If someone comes up to you and asks you, are you a Christian? Chances are 99.9 of you would say, of course I'm a Christian. I know I'm not Hindu or Buddhist or, well, I do come from the Jewish tradition. But you would say, absolutely, I'm a Christian. But if that same person followed that question with, are you a disciple? That takes on a whole different tone, a whole different flavor. As a Christian, salvation is a free gift offered to us. All we have to do is receive it. But as a disciple, that is a personal commitment day by day to take up our cross and follow Him. For some gathered here this morning, the call is, you've looked long enough. Now rise up. Follow Jesus. For some gathered here this morning, it's not a call to come and kick the tires. It's not a call to rise up and follow because you've been doing that for quite some time. It's the call to push out deeper. To go in places you've never gone before. To attempt something you've never attempted. The 5th chapter of Luke has a story I think probably many of us are familiar with. It's the story of Peter and his buddies along the sea after a long night of fishing. We're told there's 2 boats. And they're all in their boats after a long night of fishing, mending their nets, fixing them. But we know in the story they didn't catch anything that night. Nothing. Now can you imagine the people walking up and down the Sea of Galilee, looking at these fishermen? And the first question I'm sure these people were asking was, did you catch anything?
No.
You are right. Amen. Sometimes you've got to be careful what you ask. No, absolutely. Jesus comes along. He doesn't ask a question. He doesn't put them down. But he does say this. Go deeper. Go out there where you've never gone before. No. And what happens next is they catch so many fish, their boat almost sinks. It was still the same way of fishing, but they learned to fish in a new place, in a new way, with a new power. And I know this speaks to some of you. Where this church thing has grown stale. Where you're bored. And find the only place you are pushing yourself is toward the nearest exit. I know that speaks to some of you. You are wondering and perhaps hoping that Jesus is calling you toward a new adventure, something exciting, vibrant, and alive. Something that uses your gifts but also stretches your weaknesses. Let me ask this question. When was the last time following Jesus required the very power of God to ensure your success? For some of us, the invitation this morning is just to come and see. Check it out. For some, it's to rise and follow because you've been checking this thing out for far too long. And for others, it is the call to go deeper because we've been doing the same thing the same way for decades, and you could probably do it blindfolded while walking backwards. Those invitations are before us, my friends, because the call is to eventually go and tell. Go and tell people about Jesus. In my study, I came across a church. I want to make sure I get this right. The Brentwood United Methodist Church. It's one of those mega churches. And they asked their congregation a very interesting question that I had never heard asked before. And here was the question. How many church people does it take to make a single disciple? I thought that was an intriguing question. Now, that's not how many United Methodists does it take to change the light bulb kind of question, okay? But how many people does it take to make a disciple? Intriguing question. When they pondered it for their church, they said it took over 40 people to make a disciple. It took the person who met them at the front door to smile. It took the ushers to be exuberant and friendly rather than just handing a bulletin. It took people around them where they were sitting to actually care they were there. And don't sit in their pew. It took the choir. It took the music ministry to inspire them to hear the gospel in a different way. It took the Sunday school or children's church program to inspire their children. It took the youth group program to inspire their teens. It took the small groups and the study groups to inspire mom and dad. I think 40 is far too few. I think it takes all of us, each and every one of us here gathered this morning, to make a disciple. It takes dozens of us here every week to intentionally focus on hospitality, welcoming, greeting, supporting, encouraging, and listening to make disciples. Because, friends, the simple truth is this: our witness here this morning will either diminish or increase one's excitement. Our stepping out of our comfort zone will either encourage or discourage someone to return next Sunday or look elsewhere. There's a lot riding on this. Friends, a lot depends on our witness within these hallowed walls. But we also have a faithful witness out into the world to change hearts for Jesus Christ. I will almost guarantee you that every one of us will hear this question within the next 2 days. Either tomorrow or Tuesday. Here's the question. How was your weekend? That's the time to witness. Most of us, when we're asked that question, will say, well, my football team won. I can't say that this year. My football team lost. But what if? What if? How was your weekend? It was great. I was inspired in some way by something. Would that change? Would that flip the conversation? That's a witness. It's a doorway to share. When we greet someone new in our neighborhood, we make sure that they know their way to the store or the bank. What about the church? What about the church? Do we share with them an invitation to the church to grow? I'll guarantee you, if it doesn't happen Monday or Tuesday, it'll happen sometime today or this week. Someone's going to come up to you and say, how are you doing? What are we going to say? I'm walking around, standing up straight. What if we turned that around and to say, I'm inspired, I'm excited, I'm ready to follow, and my spiritual life is growing by leaps and bounds? Would that be more intriguing than the weather? That's the witness that we're called to invite others to a living, loving relationship with Jesus, because it's been said the right word at the right time in the right way with the right person for the right reason has powerful results. I end with this. Where's Jesus calling you this morning? Maybe it's to come and check this out. If it is, take your time. Maybe it's to rise up. You know you've checked it out for long enough. What else do you need to see? Maybe it's to go deeper. Maybe it's time to change the word in our witness. I call on all of us, myself included, that this is a challenge for all of us. We are a walking, talking, breathing Facebook. Who and to what are we inviting? Let us pray. Wonderful God, we thank you. We thank you for your presence here among us and your presence that leads us out into the world. We have felt your presence and your invitation. May we honor that invitation, whatever it is in our lives, and may we be found worthy of it. In your holy name we pray. Amen.